Which player will break out on every NFL team in 2024? What's going on, football fans? It's Mitch back here with another NFL video. And in this video, my pick and prediction for the breakout player on all 32 NFL teams this season. The player that will elevate their game to the next level. These are players that are still young in their careers. They're not solidified. Their status is still unknown. They're not rookies, most likely second, third, or fourth year players that can really take that next step and absolutely elevate their teams. Before I give you my pick for your favorite team's breakout player of 2024, make sure to spike the like button. Why? If we get 100 likes on this video, I will give a list for every NFL team, the X Factor player on all 32 teams. So 100 likes for the player that is the wild card X Factor for their success in 2024. Also subscribe for more NFL content just like this, and hop in the comments and let me know your pick for the breakout player on all 32 teams. Of course, this is extremely subjective. Not only do you actually have to think the player is going to be pretty good in 2024, but you also have sort of a difference in opinion on whether a player has already broken out, which I will provide that information with each pick. So let's begin, of course, in alphabetical order with the Arizona Cardinals. I wanted to pick a pass rusher here, and I do believe that the Cardinals desperately are searching for a leading sacker, a sack artist of sorts, and somebody that can provide consistent production, pressuring the quarterback, getting after it on third down. And that is really what Gannon's defense strived upon in 2022 when he reached the Super Bowl with the Philadelphia Eagles and set a record for sacks. And in 2023, his first season with the Cardinals, he didn't really have that same consistent production up front, clearly. The pass rush didn't really have a household name, and they're searching for one of those household names. My pick would be B.J. Ojulari, the second-round pick in 2023, who did have 4 sacks and 20 pressures as a rookie, as well as a 8.1 pass rushing productivity grade from Pro Football Focus. Anything I would say above 7 is a pretty good grade. Overall, 8.1 is really solid. Ojulari is just that guy that maybe was not the most productive last year. As we brought up, Dennis Gardeck was the most underrated player on the Cardinals in a previous video that I already made where I talked about every team's most underrated player. Gardeck was extremely underrated and productive, but the most talented one of this group with the most upside is BJ, and that's why I'm going to go with him in this video. The Atlanta Falcons breakout player is one of the more obvious picks of the entire video, and that is Bijan Robinson, running back, of course, of the Atlanta Falcons. Bijan not only could break out in terms of being a fantasy darling and superstar in 2024, and not only is he already a good player, rushing for 976 yards, 4 touchdowns, 4.6 yards per carry. He did catch 58 passes last year. So he was productive as a rookie, but to me, the breakout for Bijan Robinson is elevating his status to truly elite playmaker status and elite running back conversation. I'm talking about including Bijan Robinson in the Christian McCaffrey conversation. That's what I'm talking about. And that's where I believe Bijan Robinson might land after 2024. They're already discussing that big-time Christian McCaffrey-like role in Atlanta for Bijan. Given his traits and skills as both a runner and a receiver, it would make perfect sense to hand the keys to this offense to Bijan Robinson and see how far he literally can run with it, right? Like, he is that type of special talent. He was a top 10 pick for a reason, possessing incredible cutback ability, explosiveness, great hands, vision, just everything, power, toughness, grit, competitiveness, all the traits you look for in an elite runner. And he also is a talented receiver. Only 19th in carries as a rookie, as a top first-round pick. I understand they have Tyler Algier, but that is disgusting. That is not good enough usage. I think that usage really climbs. I think Bijan has a massive season with one of the best offensive lines in the league in front of him, with Kirk Cousins calling the plays and manipulating the line of scrimmage to get that offense in the right look. And then also a new play caller at the helm, no Arthur Smith. Now it's going to be Zach Robinson. It's going to be that Ram style where they love to feature one running back. Think Todd Gurley, right? Bijan Robinson is going to be the Todd Gurley for the Falcons this year. The next breakout player is Odafe Oweh of the Baltimore Ravens. This, I think, is a little bit of an under-the-radar selection just because Oweh has been in our minds for a while as a breakout candidate. He is entering, I believe, his contract year. So that is also a big factor in determining a breakout because oftentimes players don't break out until they're really forced to get that financial aid, right? And Oweh actually sneakily had a pretty effective season as a third-year pro. He was the 29th graded edge rusher in football last year, top 30 in both run defense and pass rush ability. He also posted a 9.0 pass rushing productivity grade, which ranked 28th in the NFL. So again, PRP was top 30, run defense grade was top 30, pass rush grade was top 30, 54 pressures in the NFL last year in 13 games, and 5 sacks, which tied his career high. So he was on course to a breakout season in 2023, but he didn't quite get there because of injury. I think he gets there in 2024. Think about it. They lost to Jadeveon Clowney. They need someone to step up. He is a former first-round pick. He's in a contract year, and his game has been trending forward. I feel like an 8+ sack season for Oweh is definitely possible this year. That's why he's my pick for a breakout candidate for the Ravens. They desperately need a pass rusher right now as well because Mike McDonald being gone is definitely not going to help pass rushers kind of be featured in the right fashion in terms of creating pressures, generating pass rush through scheme. They're going to need talent to get it done, and Oweh possesses it. Dalton Kincaid is my pick for the Buffalo Bills. Dalton Kincaid is an easy pick, similar to Bijan Robinson, high-end prospect at his position, tight end, first-round pick last year, 15th in receiving grade as a rookie, pretty positive numbers, 73 catches, 673 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But I promise you, if you looked up the game log for those numbers, you would see that his production largely came later in the season when Stephon Diggs was starting to be phased out of the offense, and Dalton Kincaid was starting to figure out the NFL and be a bigger part of the featured passing game for Josh Allen and be a go-to target. And to me, I loved Dalton Kincaid coming out of the draft. I thought he was the best tight end in his class, and although Sam Laporta outperformed him as a rookie, I think that Kincaid has all the skills to become one of the elite players at this position. He's a fluid athlete that can really run routes really well. He's got good hands. He's tough. He's good after the catch. He's a little nimble, at maneuvering after the catch. So I think Dalton Kincaid also possesses that kind of intelligence of how to find holes against zone. So I think Dalton Kincaid is going to become the go-to receiver for Josh Allen here shortly, and I would expect it to happen as soon as 2024. I could see him catching close to 90 passes in 2024 if the Bills are going to continue to pass the way that they have. J.C. Horn is my pick for the Carolina Panthers. This is another easy one as long as the Panthers corner stays healthy. J.C. Horn's main issue has been health. 22 games in 3 years as an NFL cornerback, but he was a high-end first-round pick. He was actually picked ahead of Pat Surtain and also Micah Parsons. So yeah, big-time prospect. Obviously, NFL legend at wide receiver Joe Horn was his father, and JC has been really good anytime he's played in his 3 seasons, it's just that he has not been able to put together a serious, long body of work throughout a course of a season. Last year, he only played 6 games. He had 5 passes defensed in 6 games, which would lead to, on average, about 15 passes defense in a season, which is a really high number. He also has never really given up a ton of yards or touchdowns or a high rating or completion percentage in any season that he has played. He's a very physical press cover corner, and I'm really excited to see if he can truly just stay healthy and provide the Panthers a true lockdown corner in the secondary. If he's healthy, he will be the breakout player on this team, because honestly, there are not a lot of candidates outside of maybe Bryce Young on offense. Tyreek Stevenson is a pick for another corner breakout of the Chicago Bears. Tyreek Stevenson had a really up and down roller coaster rookie season, but as a year 2 player, I expect him to take great strides, almost in a Deron Bland type of way from what we saw from Dallas last year and his production this past season. But the reason I say that is Stevenson plays a similar style. He's a little bit of a boom and bust type of player. He did allow 9 touchdowns in his coverage this year, at least according to PFF. But regardless of that, the rest of his resume is pretty impressive, right? He had 4 picks on the season. He also had 14 forced incompletions, which was 6th in the NFL. And he had 15 pass stops, which was top 20 in the NFL. And he faced 110 targets, which was in the top 10. So he faced a lot of targets. He got a lot of work. I believe he was a 2nd-round pick, if I'm not mistaken, out of Miami. He is tall, he is long, he is physical, he's got great ball skills, and he fits that type of defense, Matt Eberflus's press scheme, very well. And he also complements Jalen Johnson really well. The reason he saw so many targets is because Jalen Johnson is so good. So the reason I think that he'll get a lot of production this year and perhaps rise in the consensus ranks among corners is because a lot of teams will be throwing at him and he'll have a chance, like, how J.C. Jackson had a chance when he was alongside Stephon Gilmore, or what we saw kind of from Deron Bland, or we've seen from recent years of corners just having a ton of picks because the other guy, you don't throw at him, right? So that's kind of Tyreek Stevenson in Chicago this season. Chase Brown is my selection for the Cincinnati Bengals, and I think Bengals fans would have seen this one coming. I did contemplate the 2 secondary players here, with Dax Hill potentially making the move to perimeter corner, and then also DJ Turner out of Michigan, the 2nd or 3rd round pick from last year. But Chase Brown is my pick because I think he's going to be, at the end of the year, the featured back of one of the best offenses in the NFL. And last season, he showed enough flash, enough explosion in his game. 11.1 yards per reception was the most impressive number I saw on his resume last year. Great in the screen game, great feel. Almost reminded me a little bit of Giovanni Bernard or James White in that aspect. A little bit of Austin Eckler. He's a little smaller. He's explosive, though. He can really run. And he is really good in passing situations, 3rd down back potentially, in the gun, running the football as well. He'll split time with Zach Moss, but I expect that to kind of get towards a 60-40, 70-30 type split for Chase Brown near the end of the year, because I just think he's more electric with the football, and his ability to catch the ball, I think, is going to come in handy in a pass-heavy attack with Joe Burrow leading the way. Grant Delpit is my selection for the Cleveland Browns. This is one of those, maybe that's a little bit of a toss-up in terms of whether or not Grant Delpit has already broken out. 2 years ago, he had over 100 tackles and 4 interceptions. This past year, he was the 31st graded safety in football and was really, really good in pass rushing, 7th pass rushing grade, 19th in coverage, top 20 there. He's just been really poor in terms of his tackling and his run defense, but he has played, in a lot of different spots so far in his career, whether it be deep free safety, in the box, strong safety, or even in the slot. Last year, he played a little bit of everything, but primarily, near the box, I would say. Delpit, I just think he has not really reached the level of securing himself a long-term contract with Cleveland, securing him a role with Cleveland for many years to come. And I don't think a lot of fans outside of the Browns fan base really knows his role or understands how good he can be at times. So I want him to lock that down in 2024, which is why he's my breakout pick. On top of the fact that there just are not a lot of breakout candidates on Cleveland. Like the other one, JOK, already kind of broke out last year. Like the D-line's kind of older. Nobody could really break out there. The secondary, I feel like everybody's kind of already broken out, or we already know how good they are. The offensive line, that's kind of the same case. And, Nick Chubb, like Amari Cooper. Like, unless we go out on a limb and say Deshaun Watson is going to kind of like re-establish himself as Houston Texan Deshaun Watson, maybe you could consider that a second breakout. But I don't know. There's just not a lot of candidates, and Delpit to me just hasn't reached that level of a Denzel Ward, a Myles Garrett, even some of these secondary players like Zadarius Smith, those type of guys, Tomlinson, where we know who they are. Like every NFL fan really knows who those guys are, but Delpit is a little bit lower key. So that's why I picked him for this spot. Sam Williams is my selection for the Dallas Cowboys. Sam Williams, I think, is a good player, and I think has a really big opportunity, which is the key mix of a breakout player: opportunity and talent. And when talent reaches opportunity, that's when you get a breakout. And when you think about Dallas, they lost Dorrance Armstrong and they lost Dante Fowler, and both players were key to their defensive line rotation. Obviously, they have DeMarcus Lawrence, they have Micah Parsons, they have Adigi Zua. We've talked about those guys at length on this channel. But Sam Williams is going to be the new Dorrance Armstrong in many ways. So he could play a larger, role in this defense. He only played like 200 snaps last year in terms of pass rushing or just snaps in general. He had 24 pressures on those 200 snaps. He had an 8.1 pass rushing productivity grade. He's graded in the top 55 among DNs in the last 2 seasons. So to me, as a second round pick in 2022, they moved on from Dorrance Armstrong. They didn't sign Dante Fowler with the intention that Sam Williams needs more snaps, that they've really been impressed enough with his game. And now Zimmer comes in to potentially mix things up, maybe moving around DeMarcus Lawrence a little bit to the interior to get Williams on the field. That's also a possibility. But if he just becomes Dorrance Armstrong, which is like 6-7 sacks this year, I would consider that a pretty considerable breakout compared to the rest of his career so far for Sam Williams as a top-notch third D-end in that rotation. PJ Locke is my pick as a very, I think, under-the-radar breakout pick for the Denver Broncos. PJ Locke started a lot of games last year for the Broncos secondary because their safety position was a little bit chaotic last year. They had some injuries. They also had some guys that are aging. They had some suspensions. But PJ Locke was the best graded pass rush safety in the NFL last year. Although he did not do it a lot, he was very, very effective. And then you combine that with his run defense grade, which was 21st in the NFL. And then you have the weird mix that he played more snaps at free safety, 317, than he did in the box at 132. And this is just the type of safety, in my opinion, that perfectly fits Vance Joseph's system. He needs a guy that can fly around and play the run and tackle really well, that can be effective as a blitzer. Obviously, that's been the case. He had 3 sacks last year. And he can also play deep if you need him to. So he's got a lot of versatility. They did move on from Justin Simmons, who is yet to be signed by anybody yet. So I don't think he's coming back to Denver. So PJ Locke is going to start, is going to play more, is going to be essential to the secondary. And he's had a little bit of an interesting start to his career. He was kind of off the radar early in his NFL career. The last 2 years, though, whenever he has been on the field, he has been a productive and good, solid player for the Broncos. So I expect a breakout with more looks and more snaps in Denver. Jack Campbell is my selection for the Detroit Lions. I was a huge Jack Campbell fan in the draft last year. And it was a little disappointing to see him not play as well as I would have thought as a rookie, grading as the 77th best linebacker in the NFL, having literally the second worst coverage grade among all linebackers, playing 745 snaps, which was very confusing to me considering when I watched Jack Campbell, especially when he played Ohio State and CJ Stroud, he was unbelievable in coverage. So it's kind of odd to see how that worked out. Coming from, I believe it was Iowa, just the size that he has, the athleticism that he has, the length that he has. I thought that he would convert to being a coverage linebacker fairly easily, but there's something different about the NFL level with all the motion and all the eye candy that he kind of got, tossed in that mix and was not very effective at figuring out where the ball was going to go and reading the quarterback's eyes and doing those little detailed things that guys like Anzalone maybe could help him out with in the future. But where he was really good was in the run game, 21st in the run game, so already very solid there, solid tackler, great athlete. He just kind of needs to figure out the coverage aspects of the linebacker position. And I think with a full another offseason, having a very solid defensive staff to help him in that regard, and then a couple of veterans to also boost him up. If Jack Campbell can take a major leap this year, that would drastically change the look of the Lions defense. I think it would make the Lions better in the middle of the field. It would make them more ferocious. I think it would make them faster. I think their entire defense would go up a level if Campbell becomes what they hoped he would become when they picked him in the first round. So I'm going to pick him as my breakout player of 2024. Christian Watson, of course, did you think it was going to be anybody else, is my pick for the Green Bay Packers. Christian Watson probably should have already broken out by now if it were not for hamstrings, but this guy has been one of the most explosive receivers in football, despite not always being on the field. Christian Watson is a rare athlete at 6'4", 6'5", running a 4.28. Right, he can burn defenses, and we've already seen games and moments and stretches throughout his career where he has been one of the best receivers in the league. Now, this is a little bit of a jam-packed receiving core, but if there is one receiver that has the physical capabilities and talent to become a number one receiver in this league, it is Christian Watson. He could take a handoff and do damage. He can burn by you, and he is a great red zone threat, as we've already seen throughout his career. Last year, Christian Watson, right before getting injured for the final time, was actually starting to have a very good breakout. He had 3 straight games with a touchdown, and he had 2 awesome games against legit contender opponents. He had 5 catches for 94 yards on Thanksgiving against Detroit, and then he had 7 catches for 71 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Chiefs. He was the only receiver in 2023 to catch 2 touchdowns against the Chiefs, period. And then on top of that, a very interesting stat I found about Watson is that in fantasy football, he has averaged 2.06 expected fantasy points per target since he's entered the league, which is top 3 in the past 2 seasons. So when he's on the field, he's productive. He just needs to stay healthy, which it looks like right now he's looking pretty fast at camp, but we'll see how that goes. He's my pick for a breakout for the Packers. Juice Scruggs is my selection for the Houston Texans. There were not many actual candidates for the Texans, but a couple of them do reside on the offensive line. The Texans' new center, Juice Scruggs, is why I'm picking him. He did grade 67th last year, playing 534 snaps at guard, not center. He was drafted to play center as a second-round pick in 2023, but was immediately thrust into a guard role because of the injuries that they had. I think specifically to former first-round pick Kenyon Green. But now that Scruggs is able to play his natural position in a well-manufactured and well-structured offense, I think he's going to be able to really elevate the run game and the push up the interior. So I think Scruggs is just naturally going to fit in as a center in the NFL, second-round pick in 2023, and be the guy that snaps the football to CJ Stroud, and Texans fans are hoping for a long time moving forward. Juju Brents is my pick for the Indianapolis Colts. Obviously, I could have went with Anthony Richardson here, but there's always the risk that he does get hurt again, and there's also the risk that maybe he does disappoint, but I honestly thought Richardson was almost like a cop-out, so I went with something a little bit different, where Juju Brents is at a position of huge need for the Colts, and the Colts need Brents to break out. They need a corner to break out, period. Last year, he only played 8 games, another guy that struggled with injuries. But when he did play, he played pretty well, in my opinion. He did have 1 pick, 1 forced fumble, 43 tackles. He did immediately start for them as a late pick in the draft. And he was the 66th graded corner in football. What I like about Brents is his competitiveness at the catch point. He's got the length and the size to play in Gus Bradley's system. And I think with more kind of schooling, let's say, he could really take a massive leap this year. And I could see him being the true number 1 corner for the Colts by season's end. So Brents is my pick for the Colts. Next up, Travon Walker is my selection for Jacksonville. Walker did have 10 sacks last year, so some Jacksonville fans will be like, Mitch, didn't he kind of already break out? But here's the thing about Travon Walker, right? First of all, his PFF grade was not very good, or not very kind. I believe he graded like 90th or in the 90s, somewhere in there. But, his numbers are pretty solid. 59 pressures, 10 sacks, right? But here's the thing, right? Had 7 sacks in his last 7 games. So the first half of his season was not very good. So a lot of people kind of missed the Travon Walker coming out party. So what I'm thinking is that he continues his surge into 2024 from the beginning and really breaks out. On top of that, he has a guy like Eric Armstead, a veteran that has similar freaky traits that can also help him along. Josh Allen on the other side to take some attention away. Obviously, Roy Robertson Harris as well. A very complete across the front 4 is Jacksonville, and Walker could really complete that with consistent play in the run and the pass game. And again, 7 sacks in the last 7 games. You could also just look at his pressure statistics. They were also rising. He seemed to click. Something seemed to work for him. Now, the scheme will be altering to a Nielsen scheme, a Saints-like scheme. He was the defensive coordinator of Atlanta last year. But I think Walker is sort of going to be similarly used to somebody like Cameron Jordan, and I'm excited to see how that works out. But yeah, I think he has a big opportunity in front of him, does Travon Walker in 2024. Joshua Williams is my pick for the Kansas City Chiefs. You could have also went with Jalen Watson, but I think he's a little bit more well-renowned and maybe not as talented overall as Joshua Williams. But Williams graded as the 25th best corner in football last year, second in forced incompletion percentage at 28%, 74.4 passer rating allowed, and 9th in yards per reception allowed. So Joshua Williams, big guy, stands out in his size. Watson and Williams are both massive human beings. And I think either of these could take steps forward, but Williams is the one that I think will get more snaps this year. Watson was already getting a fair amount of snaps. But with McDuffie primarily playing in the slot, Williams and Watson will be their 2 press cover corners on the outside. One has to replace L'Jarius Sneed. It will be Joshua Williams. And it feels like the Chiefs just have a very good understanding, and Spags is very good at coaching up cornerbacks. And it feels like Williams is the next in line to be the next Charvarius Ward, the next L'Jarius Sneed. And there was obviously a plan here to not sign Sneed and to move off of him and potentially have a young kid like Williams take more snaps. So clearly the Chiefs think he'll break out, and I'm not going to doubt them with that. Zamir White is my pick for the Las Vegas Raiders. In the last 4 games of the 2023 NFL season, Zamir White had at least 69 yards. In each and every game. He carried the load when Josh Jacobs was out, and he had 2 100-yard games, including against the rival Chiefs, where he absolutely decimated them on the ground for 135 yards. Zamir White is a classic power back that is kind of reminiscent of Josh Jacobs in size, stature, and power, and actually has deceptive breakaway speed. I think White will be a pretty solid first and second down ball carrier, kind of like, that classic Damian Harris as a Patriots fan, like that type of role. I think because the Raiders are looking to be a run-heavy type of team, right? I feel like Zamir White could be the David Montgomery of the Raiders. If you're thinking like the Lions have 2 running backs, but White might actually get more work in the passing game than you would expect because the competition behind him isn't exactly phenomenal, right? Amir Abdullah, I believe, is their 3rd down back. So, yeah, Zamir White has a huge opportunity ahead of him. The offensive line is extremely underrated. They did add a couple assets to it this offseason. They're going to be running multi-tight end offense. Their quarterback position isn't too dynamic, so they're going to want to run the ball. So Zamir White feels like not only a breakout, but also a pretty interesting fantasy pick, in my opinion. Zion Johnson at the guard position from the Chargers. Now, I was kind of tossed up between the 2 guards and maybe a linebacker for the Chargers, but I think the offensive line is the perfect place to go. Why? Because that's where Harbaugh wants to be fundamentally, foundationally strong. And when we talk about Greg Roman, we talk about power football, running the football, really enforcing an attitude, a grittiness, a toughness on their opponents and in their overall culture. And Zion Johnson was a 1st-round pick, and he's played solid football throughout his career so far. 44th and 39th have been his PFF grades, and for a 1st and 2nd year guard, that's not bad at all. But I think in year 3, with a more power-based system and run game, I think Johnson could truly take a massive step in proving why he was a 1st-round pick. So now with Joe Alt, with Rashawn Slater, it's going to be pretty interesting to see the Chargers run the rock for the first time since Sladany and Tomlinson at a consistent rate. So Zion Johnson is my selection. Steve Avila is my pick for the Rams, back-to-back offensive lineman for the Los Angeles football teams. But Avila is interesting to me because last year he played well at guard, 35th in the NFL, 25th in pass blocking, and as a rookie, that's pretty darn successful protecting Matthew Stafford. But I think in 2024, he's going to elevate because I think he's going to be more natural at the center position, which is, I think, what McVay and the offensive staff and the overall management of the Rams has in mind with Avila, and I think probably did when they drafted him. He was a high draft pick. I believe he was picked in the 2nd round of 2023. And now that they added a guard in Jonah Jackson, and they have a really good guard in Kevin Dotson, a really good guard duo in general, you put Avila in the middle, and that's all of a sudden a really, really, really intriguing interior offensive line to run the football, to protect Stafford where he needs to be protected the most, up the middle in the interior, so he can step up and work the pocket the way that he does magically. And with those 2 guards around him, you feel like Avila will be able to comfortably switch positions and play well. So that's why he's my pick to be the breakout for the Rams. Devin Achane is my pick for the Miami Dolphins. Achane was just insane as a rookie. Like, I don't really know how else to describe it other than he was electric. He was explosive. He was must watch at times and truly took your breath away running the football. I mean, 7.8 yards per attempt last year. That is ludicrous. 800 yards on 103 attempts, 11 total touchdowns, including 3 through the air. He was 1st in PFF grade and 1st in run grade. Now, I did discuss Keaton Mitchell, but Keaton Mitchell did not get the quality of snaps that Achane got, but both similarly were super effective as rookies. Achane, man, he could be the starter this year. He could be the primary ball carrier. I think he should. And with that being said, he might go for 1,000 and 500. And I think he could be a key component to this offense. He is absolutely explosive. Mekhi Blackmon is my pick for the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings desperately need a corner to step up, and Blackmon seems to be the guy. They did pick him with the highest priority pick at the corner position, I believe, in 2023. And he did play well in 2023, 32nd graded in 2023, 434 snaps. He was 37th in coverage grade. He had a 21 force incompletion percentage, which was 5th in the NFL. He had 8 pass breakups and only allowed 2 touchdowns and had an interception. So Blackmon, very feisty at the catch point. Not the fastest, but I think his blend of being able to play a multitude of coverages, whether it be zone and breaking on the football or man and being in that hip pocket of the receiver and being all over that receiver, is classic Brian Flores cornerback play. And he just has a great blend for what they're looking for. So I could see him really elevating as potentially the Vikings' best corner in 2024. So get to know Blackmon of the Vikings. Christian Gonzalez is arguably the most obvious pick of this entire video. Christian Gonzalez of the New England Patriots has a chance to become the best corner in the NFL in short order. I don't know how else to say that. He only played about over 200 snaps in 2023 as a rookie out of Oregon as a first-round pick, but it was immediately clear that Christian Gonzalez is special. You just don't see corners of his size and his length be as fluid as he is. The way that he is able to transition and move his hips and break on the football is extremely reminiscent of Stephon Gilmore. And he is like a quiet assassin out there, locking down every single receiver he was able to play as a rookie. Whether it be in his first game as an NFL pro going toe-to-toe and man-to-man with A.J. Brown, shutting down Tyreek Hill on Sunday Night Football, or even going basically a no-hitter against Garrett Wilson, Christian Gonzalez looked like one of the best corners in the league already as a rookie. And I would expect in year 2, post-injuries, although he didn't have to miss all of last year, they decided to be very conservative with him for his future. He's going to have, a little bit more time to work on his craft this offseason without the rookie circus. And I'd expect in year 2, I wouldn't be shocked if Gonzalez was playing at a top 5 level for this position. And that's why he is the breakout for the Patriots. Jordan Howden is my pick for the New Orleans Saints, a little bit of a less known commodity here on the breakout list. Graded as the 47th best safety in football last year, playing 341 snaps at the free safety position. He actually ended up getting 7 starts under his belt as a rookie and a late round rookie at that, with Marcus May having to deal with, I believe, a suspension. I can't really remember, and also some injuries. But he played well in place of Marcus May, and this is why they didn't re-sign Marcus May, and Marcus May ended up going to Miami instead. And because they believe Howden is a good player. 25% forced incompletion rate, which is a very high number. He also allowed only a 59% completion percentage. So Howden as a true free safety complementing Tyrann Mathieu, almost in that Marcus Williams type of role. I think he's got a bright future in the Saints secondary, a secondary that is very, very, very well coached and always seems to get these diamonds in the rough. And I think Jordan is the next one in line. John Michael Schmitz Jr. is my selection for the New York Giants. The Giants desperately need better offensive line play. Michael Schmitz Jr. or John Michael Schmitz Jr. Too many names, bro. Pick one, maybe 2, all right? He was bad as a rookie. He graded as the worst center in the entire NFL, 36 out of 36. But he was a second-round pick that I kind of liked coming out of the draft. And this is the big factor for me. First of all, the protection around him will be a lot better. The quarterback play, you would think, would be subtly a little bit better. And I do think that the offensive line coaching is the area that's going to improve the most, which is going to improve one of the more talented players on this offensive line a lot. And that is John Michael Schmitz Jr. Cameron Brasillo is the new offensive line coach. He spent a brief period with the New England Patriots working as the mentee to the mentor of Dante Scarnecchia for a year or 2 in New England and really studied his ways, went to Las Vegas and was the offensive line coach for Josh McDaniels' Raiders, where they have been a very steady and effective, especially in the run game, and gotten a lot out of very little on the offensive line there. And so I think Carmen Brasillo is a really good coach. And so I think he's going to take a moldable second-round pick like John Michael Schmitz and make him a very fascinating center for the Giants. They desperately need it. I think they'll get it. Will McDonald, my guy, is my pick for the New York Jets breakout of 2024. Obviously, they let go of a couple defensive ends this offseason. Huff is gone to the Eagles. They did bring in Hassan Reddick, right? But Will McDonald was a first-round pick. Will McDonald was picked with the intention to play him. And yes, they have Hassan Reddick and Jalen Johnson, but Will McDonald is probably going to play that Huff role where he comes in and he gets in that rotation and he rushes the quarterback. Last year, he only played 183 snaps, but he did grade as the 45th best pass rusher and 45th best defensive end in football, according to PFF, with 3 sacks on the season and only 183 snaps. Will McDonald, grades looked positive as a rookie. I really liked him coming out of college. I think he used great technique as a rusher, great length as a rusher. He's a unique specimen in his size and stature, and I think he's really going to play well for the Jets. I wouldn't be shocked if he had a Jalen Johnson-like 2023, that Johnson saw a huge, rise in his play, and you could still argue that maybe he has a little bit more to break out, but McDonald is the next in line, I think. So he's my pick to break out for the Jets defense. Cam Jurgens is my selection for the Philadelphia Eagles. Cam Jurgens was picked by Jason Kelce himself to be his Jason Kelce replacement for the Philadelphia offensive line. And I get the sense, I just have a gut feeling that Cam Jurgens is going to play for the Eagles, and he is going to play really well, and he's going to almost make you forget that Jason Kelce is not there, because Cam Jurgens played despite, not exactly being an ideal guard in the NFL. He graded as the 31st best guard in the NFL in his first year, ever starting his second NFL season, I believe. He was 23rd in run blocking. He did struggle in pass blocking, but I would probably chalk that up to the weird position switch for him, as he is more of a center in nature. And Jason Kelce picked him. So I'm going to believe that Jason Kelce knows what he's talking about, because I think he also picked Landon Dickerson, if I'm not mistaken. So Cam Jurgens, I think he's going to be a really good one. The Eagles know how to coach an offensive line, and Jurgens is another good one. Broderick Jones is my pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers, another offensive lineman here. He didn't have a great rookie season. It was a little bit up and down, but 62nd in PFF grade. But where he was pretty solid was in run game and run blocking in general. 45th in run blocking in 2023. Broderick Jones is a massive human being with rare physical traits. And I think Arthur Smith, being the run game guy that he is going to take that 45th run block grade, probably elevated about 20 spots, take that massive athlete with great feet and use it to its best ability, similarly to his Georgia days. So I think Jones is going to have a huge year and a huge breakout. I could see him becoming a top 20 left tackle in the NFL, or maybe even top 20 tackle in general in 2024. Jair Brown is my pick for the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers are another one of those teams, kind of like the Browns, where they don't really have a lot of breakout candidates. Offensive linemen, possibly, but Jair Brown is the most obvious, just because he's going to be a starter in 2024. He's going to be playing safety, and we know this now. I don't think Tashaun Gibson is coming back, and if he does, he'll probably be more of a backup or a reserve. And Gibson has played well for them at an older age, but what I believe Brown will give them is more speed, athleticism, and just a little bit more physicality and willing to be reckless in his game. Now, his recklessness or his physicality and speed did not show in terms of his grading last year of being a negative. He's a younger guy, but he played fundamentally sound. 19th PFF grade last year at safety, 26th coverage grade, 27th run defense grade. Overall, pretty darn solid player as a rookie, and didn't play too much. He was kind of hurt a little bit, thrusted into action near the end of the year a little bit, and played well when he was in there. And you could definitely sense they were trying to figure out who was going to play those safety spots when Hufanga went down, and I think he's going to be a good complement to Hufanga, because I think he is more of a deep safety, while Hufanga is more of a box safety, and I think they'll complement each other well in their roles. They couldn't really find a proper role for him in 2023, but I think they will in 2024. And I think Brown, who I liked coming out of college as well, and I liked this draft pick, I think he is going to make it known in 2024 that he is a starting safety in the NFL, and a pretty good one. Charles Cross is my pick for the Seattle Seahawks. Charles Cross has sort of been close to breaking out, but I don't think he's broken out yet. I do think he's arguably the best Seattle Seahawk offensive lineman, at least on paper. 38th in PFF grade last year, 32nd in pass blocking. But I think what's really drastically going to help him, not only is it year 3 for him, which is a big year, I think, for tackles to really grow, but also like the offensive system is going to be changing, and I think it's going to help him. He's a good pass blocker. I think that this is a system that, as we saw at Washington, is kind of made for those type of pass blockers that got the good feet and the good hands. And I think Cross is ready to really elevate his game and become a very, very good blindside blocker. He does need to get a little bit better in the run game, but overall, I think that just the change in scheme, the year 3, all that sort of stuff, it should correspond with Cross having his best ever season and elevating into a new status of tackles where we're talking about Cross being a very consistent force at that position. Kalijah Kancey is my selection for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He had a very impressive rookie season, but most of that actually happened near the end of the year. Similar to my Trayvon Walker conversation, Kalijah Kancey was 42nd in pass rushing grade among defensive tackles last year. 4 sacks, 10 tackles for loss, 45 pressures, which was 23rd at his position. But in the playoffs, he had 11 pressures and 2 sacks in 2 games. 1 sack in each game, and 6 pressures in one game, and 5 pressures in the other game. So he was a force in the playoffs alongside Vita Vea against a really good line in the Lions. He played great, and he also played really great against the Eagles. So in those playoffs, something clicked, not only for Todd Bowles and the defense and how to use him, but also him in general. And I think that is going to take off in 2024, where Kancey might be the leading sacker of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I would not be shocked if he had like 10 sacks. He is that talented as a burst and quick guy off the line. He's got great hands to be able to get inside. He's a little bit undersized, but with Vita Vea next to him, kind of hides his deficiencies. I think he's going to be a great pass rusher in this league as soon as next year. So he already had a good rookie year, but I think he's going to have a great year too. Tyjae Spears is my pick for the Tennessee Titans. Many Titans fans would probably rather me go with Will Levis here, but I'm not certain that the breakout is actually going to happen for Will Levis. So I'm more certain about Tyjae Spears. I understand that Tony Pollard is there, so there might be some splitting time, but Tyjae Spears, I think, might end up being the starter or like the number 1 running back by the end of the season for Tennessee. That might be controversial. He was 18th in PFF grade last year and 6th best in receiving grade. But Spears was one of my favorite coming out of the draft class 2 years ago. I thought he was one of the best running backs in the class. He's got good power, really good quickness, vision, and even, deceptive explosiveness, and just a tough guy to tackle. He's also got the name for it. He just feels like he's going to be a really good running back. Spears. It's a great running back name. But yeah, I think I really believe in him. He's super underrated going into this year, and I'll probably be drafting him in a lot of fantasy drafts because I believe he might be the primary ball carrier there. So Tyjae Spears is my pick. And the final selection for breakout player from the Washington Commanders, Jahan Dotson, third-year wide receiver, has had 500 yards in his first 2 seasons in the NFL, which is very disappointing for a first-round pick. But in his third year, I expect with Cliff Kingsbury there, I think Jahan Dotson, the offensive switch, the scheme switch, the new quarterback in Jaden Daniels, something's going to click here. Something's going to change here. He did have a pretty good rookie season overall from a grading perspective, but did fall off a little bit, from 40th to 98th in 2023, according to PFF. So not as good of a year, but I think that Cliff's offense, he just finds a way to manufacture the ball to his best playmakers. And I think that will be the case in 2024, where McLaurin and Dotson, they're getting the ball a ton in the passing game. And Jaden Daniels, the offense he'll be running, spread system, I think they'll find a way for Dotson to be featured, especially in the middle of the field, a lot. So I think Dotson could take a major, major step forward in being closer to what they thought they were getting for that first round pick. Those are the breakout players of 2024, one for all 32 teams. Remember, if we get 100 likes on this video, I will provide the X Factor player for all 32 teams in 2024. Thanks so much for watching. It's Mitch, and we'll see you in the next BLV video. Peace.